All right, so hopefully this is not a terrible sound quality video. I am driving. That's been a little bit of an issue before. We'll just see how it goes. If it's terrible, I won't upload it. But I wanted to talk about how it seems quite obvious to me that the burden of proof is on the Natalists. And let me explain why. So, obviously, as anti-natalists, we are not doing any damage. Like, we're not, like, literally taking no action, not making a new person, right? You clearly, there's no need to justify not making a new person. It's like the default, I mean, it's not the cultural default, but it is the default state is that you were born, you live out, and you die. It's a positive action, and by positive I mean as in it is it's an action that you take. It's something that you do rather than sort of like being neutral, like in the trolley problem, pulling the lever rather than just allowing it to be is a positive action. That's how I'm meaning that here. So the default sort of passive negative action is just to not have a child and to not impose that on someone and to not, bring them to the world and expect them to struggle through this whole storybook, through all of these issues, find their place and overcome all these conflicts. So the default to me is to not have children. And so what really needs to happen here is that the natalists really need to prove, like, how do you justify taking it from a complete state of fineness, a default state of fineness where no action is taken, no person is created, and no problems are created? How do you justify taking that positive action? How do you justify making a sensitive being and putting it in this harsh world? How do you justify that? It's like Christianity or any religious sort of ideology where, of course, it's not the cultural default per se, but looking now that we sort of have the benefit of being in 2021 and we have the internet and it's pretty apparent, if you are interested, that almost beyond a shadow of a doubt, religion does not exist. God does not exist. None of these religions are real in the objective sense, in terms of there is not a magic sky wizard kind of thing. It's all sort of like a fabricated symbolic network kind of thing. And so the point is that to kind of start with the default assumption that there's not a God unless it's proved that there's a God, right? And beyond a shadow of a doubt, using either scientific kind of evidence, inductive kind of reasoning kind of method thing. The same is true for me with antinatalism, where it's just okay, you are making, the person that makes the claim. There's a Carl Sagan quote. It's extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, right? And so to start from a sort of default assumption that what's real is what we can see in the world, and if you're going to claim that there's a magic omnipresent God out there, that's a pretty extraordinary claim, and that would require some justification. Now, I would say the same thing is true with reproduction. We are just here trying to live our way out. We have access to contraception. We understand that the world is broken, and by just not taking action, you don't expose anybody to any problems. It's the affirmative action, the positive action of creating a child, the positive idea that a God exists, that needs to be justified. I think we would all agree that if there was some really solid justification like we would have seen it by now, and we would like probably struggle to grapple with it. But all of the justifications are very self-centered. They're very emotional. They're very sentimental, and most of the time they use a child as a means to an end rather than an end of themselves. They, maybe they want to play mommy and daddy. Maybe they have this fantasy of a family and, making pancakes on the weekends, and whatever it is, it's like it's fulfilling some need or some desire or some wish for the parents if the child is planned, right? So, I guess just at the end of the day, the burden of proof lies with natalists, just as the burden of proof lies not on atheists, but on Christians, on Islamic people, on Jewish people, on Hindu people, whoever it is that's trying to make these religious claims. It's the burden of proof is on them. So it's the whole you can't prove a negative thing, right? So anyway, I'm gonna wrap this one up, and it's been a little messy maybe, but I will talk to you in the next one.